It's just a soul kind of feeling.
Hi, I'm Kesenya, and welcome to this week's Astrology Weather Report. Happy Halloween, Day of the Dead, Samhain, whatever you're celebrating in regard to the passing of souls into the afterlife. And I wish you happy all of those things. Here in Australia, we don't actually celebrate those sort of things in the mainstream, unfortunately, because it is quite a traditional, ancient, and very spiritual time. And what has been really, really interesting for me is that at this time, I've had so many requests for karmic readings, readings about past lives, and looking at the karma from a past life that we now carry in this embodiment, in this lifetime. It's been really intriguing to see that so many people have been inquiring about that and getting readings for that at this very special and beautiful time of the year. But what else is happening in the astral sky in the coming week? Well, we're looking at November 1st to November 7th. And at this time, I mean, the planets, a lot of the planets are just sort of staying where they usually are. We've still got Uranus at the last degree, early degrees, of Taurus. We've still got Neptune up there in the middle degrees of Pisces. And we also have Jupiter and the Sun and Venus. And for a time this week, Mercury all still sitting in Scorpio. So there's still a lot of Scorpio energy around this week, obviously. But what I find really interesting in this first week of November, in fact, until the 23rd of November, actually, is that Jupiter will be at what we know as Gandanta degrees of Scorpio, and then early degrees of Sag are also Gandanta degrees as well. What is this? Well, Gandanta degrees, they are where we have the end of a water sign and the beginning of a fire sign. There's certain degrees, and when we have fire and water, like the movement of a planet from water sign into a fire sign, we have a big change in elemental energy. Obviously, if you mix hot air and cold air, you're going to get tornadoes. You're going to get big storms and thunderclaps and that sort of thing. So it's a supercharged event. It's like hot and cold air. It's also we can use the symbology of water is boiled by fire, and yet water puts out fire. So they are competing, if you like, energies that are both very, very strong. And so the Gandanta degrees are a Vedic terminology for these degrees. And of course, it occurs between Scorpio and Sagittarius, Pisces and Aries, and Cancer and Leo. They all have these Gandanta degrees. And at the moment, Jupiter is sitting quite powerfully in the last degrees of Scorpio at the Gandanta degrees, and will be there until, like I said, the 23rd of November. So what does this actually mean? Well, the Gandanta degrees are, as I said, they're Vedic terminology. I'm using tropical horoscope here. Before you all go and jump on the comments page and make comment about my use of tropical astrology with a Vedic terminology, I'd encourage you to perhaps check out Ernst Wilhelm's wonderful video entitled 4 Types of Years. And in that, he explains in beautiful detail about the astronomy behind our astrological use of the tropical zodiac, and how it can actually be used in this system as well, like when we're looking at Gandanta degrees. There are 2 types of Gandanta degrees. There are the what we term the Rashi degrees in Vedic, or signs, basically, Aries, Sag, the rest of them. We have the sign-based Gandanta degrees, and then we have the nakshatra-based Gandanta degrees that are based on the constellations instead of the signs. So in this system here today, we're using the Rashi-based or the sign-based Gandanta degrees with the tropical zodiac. So these Gandanta degrees, if you have a planet at the Gandanta degrees in the natal chart, that is going to indicate that you are on a very special spiritual karmic path, quite pertinent for Halloween week, shall we say. And it indicates that you're on a very have a very special mission, very special soul journey in relation to the things of that planet. If it was Venus, it would be relationships, love, romance. If it was Mercury, it might be education, it might be communication, it might be the skills of your hands. If it was a planet like Mars, maybe it would be to do with having courage this lifetime and using your energy wisely and working on anger entrepreneurship even can be seen by Mars. But it's like a knot. And this knot indicates that we have to go through some sort of trying period, if you've got this in your natal chart, some sort of trying period with regard to that planet, that it's all about you unraveling the issues that you've carried in karmic lifetimes. There's a sense of transformation about this lifetime for you in regard to that planet. And it's about preparing yourself to step up, to up level, to, climb up the ladder of your soul's evolution in this lifetime regarding that particular planet. It's a knot within our psyche that we're trying to reconcile with. So that's what can happen in your birth chart with a Gandanta planet. Equally, it will affect the collective when we have a big player like Jupiter transiting through Gandanta degrees, and it indicates a collective movement towards higher consciousness. Now, Jupiter is the guiding star, if you like, is the guru, the teacher. So his role when he's at these degrees is to guide us, guiding star, to transformation in a collective sense. And he's going to do that through imparting wisdom, revealing things when he's in the sign of Scorpio, revealing hidden things. This is the nature of what Jupiter will bring when he's in Scorpio and transiting through the Gandanta degrees. Now, the Gandanta degrees that run from Scorpio to Sagittarius are actually the most difficult of all the Gandanta degrees in the horoscope. And it indicates in a birth chart that even though you might have plenty of material prosperity or opportunity, that sort of thing, you may not actually appreciate them. You may not actually see it or realize it or value what you've got. You have things in your life, but you don't enjoy them. Very unfortunate. But with Jupiter here, what does it mean for us collectively? Well, it means that our material ties in the world are being shattered, and this is happening on a collective scale. Humanity itself, collectively, is realizing a number of things that are guiding it in a new sort of up-leveling way, in a new spiritual direction, and often it will come about through hardship, through not trauma, but through like having to unravel this knot. And sometimes when you know what it's like when you got your shoelaces tied up and you're trying to undo them and it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Sometimes our unraveling goes, trying to unravel these karmic knots in our collective conscious as well as in our personal life. Sometimes when we're trying to unravel them, these karmic knots, that it gets tighter and tighter, and we don't actually feel any relief. We don't feel any loosening of the karmic knot. That can actually happen as well. So there's a maximum churning of our inner emotions at this time, and you may well have been picking up on this already because Jupiter has been at 26 degrees of Scorpio, which is the first of the Gandanta degrees, for quite some time, and so this is already happening. Maybe there's a tenseness in your psyche. Maybe you're feeling it on a collective level that there's some change happening, there's some up-leveling happening, there's a different energy around at the moment, and this, a lot of people are attributing that to Venus, and yes, that is correct, because Venus's transit retrograde through Scorpio is a once in an 8-year event, so it's very rare. But Jupiter's transit through these degrees of Scorpio is actually a 1 in 12-year event, so even rarer, making it very, very significant as well. So the combination of these two energies playing out at the moment is what is making things very, very intense for so many people at the moment. Feelings of desperation, feelings of, I just wish this was over, get me out of here, I've had enough, but hang in there is all I will say if you're feeling that way, because by the 23rd of November, not only will Jupiter be in a new sign, but he's going to have moved beyond these Gandanta degrees. And so that, emphasis collectively on unraveling our human consciousness and dealing with some karma that as a human collective we carry, it's going to lessen, and we'll feel a lot freer, a lot lighter. Venus will be going direct by that stage. So there's, big heavyweight energy still playing out at the moment, even though Venus will be moving into Libra this coming week. We're still going to feel the effects of her retrograde going backwards. She's very close to Earth right now, and her energy is therefore stronger and more powerful, and we tend to actually internalize a lot of that stuff, reviewing our relationships, reviewing our money, trying to ascertain, well, what is important to me in relationships? So how am I going to earn money in a way that feels right to me, in a way that feels satisfying? So we're dealing with all that. Still while she's retrograde until she turns direct. And we're dealing with this karmic unraveling as well. So we might find, in a practical sense, in this week leading up to Jupiter's move, if you like, into Sagittarius, that we are still dealing with hidden things, the scorpionic things on a collective level. What else is hidden that needs to be revealed in this quite powerful first week of November? We might find, many things coming to the surface for the last time in order for us to unravel this karmic knot. So, I'm not a mundane astrologer. I don't do world predictions and that sort of thing. But keep your eye on the news and you'll know when you see maybe some Bill Cosby-esque person comes to light again, and again those issues are raised. It might be, something to do with anything hidden of a sexual nature that might come up, anything to do with crime and, criminal underground activities that are exposed again. So all of these things can come up in this next coming week as we try to unravel our human attitude, if you like, our human disposition towards sexual crimes, towards abuse, towards criminal activities and collective criminal masterminds that, and organizations and things. So all of this sort of stuff can have a last hurrah while Jupiter exits here, but it's going to help us. The aim is that in the end of this period, we will deal with things better. We will know, what we will tolerate and won't tolerate as a human society, and move forward. We're all moving towards enlightenment, even though it feels like slow progress sometimes. So this time can create psychological blocks and physical blocks that we need to address with great maturity, personally and on a human collective level as well. It's a difficult time. So the difficult times aren't over, but they will end soon. However, it is a time when our spiritual abilities can really be activated. And this is especially true with Jupiter. It's a spiritual planet connected to belief systems. So we might find our belief systems are really enhanced at this time. We really start to stand strong in our truth. We know what we believe and what we stand for. Now we know collectively and personally greater what is important to us, what we value, what our truth is. Our spiritual abilities can really come to the fore. We might find, because Scorpio is such a psychic sign, we might find suddenly our psychic abilities personally are much more enhanced, and our psychic abilities perhaps on a collective level are more enhanced as well. That could mean many things. We might just find there's a more general interest in the hidden occult things of the world, more interest in astrology, hooray, more interest in karma, more interest in psychic abilities that rises up in humanity, as well as personal abilities to, be psychic, to interpret dreams, to see signs and omens around, to understand the stars and their message to us. Now also, that aside, the Gandanta degrees aside, Jupiter at 29 degrees, which is also going to occur this coming week in astrology, Jupiter at 29 degrees is the last degree obviously, of Scorpio. And when a planet hits the last degree of a sign, I've said this before, it's like they're at a party and they turn around and wave goodbye to everyone and make their presence known for a final time before they exit. And so this is, again, what's going to be happening this week. Jupiter will be at the party. Everyone's having a good time, or having a stressful time in most people's cases at the moment. And Jupiter will turn around and give his last little bit of oomph to the issues that have arisen for us over this past year. And you might like to stop and think, well, what's happened for me over this past year? What have been the themes in this last year of my life while Jupiter has been in Scorpio? It doesn't mean, you don't look back and necessarily say, oh, Jupiter's brought me nothing, I haven't achieved anything, there's been no good things come into my life. Just look at the themes in general of this past year. And you might find a revisiting of whatever that might have been. Maybe it was health. Maybe it was, maybe you had some health issues or some, problems with your heart or cholesterol or something, and whatever, or maybe you had issues with family and relationships within your family dynamic or with your siblings. Whatever the main themes were over this last year will be revisited in the week ahead when Jupiter gives his last hurrah at 29 degrees of Scorpio before changing signs. And we will get a bit of relief when Jupiter moves into Sagittarius and changes signs, but as I said, he'll still be in those Gandanta degrees. There's still some unraveling of issues and karma for us all, and an emphasis on sort of up-leveling in a spiritual sense that might still feel painful, might still feel a bit like childbirth. It might still feel like the thunderclap of the hot and cold air coming together, where our life still feels quite volatile and quite precarious. So just know that's we're going to get a bit of relief with the change of signs, but in astrological weather terminology, we're still going to have some thunderstorms, and still going to be in a difficult situation until late November. But with Jupiter changing signs, it indicates an ending, obviously. 29 degrees is the degree of endings as well as the last hurrah. So it's the final time. It's the final, last time that we will deal with these Jupiter and Scorpio issues for another 12 years. So let's make the most of it. Let's do the inner work. Let's go deep and intense, like Scorpio calls us to do, about wherever Jupiter in Scorpio falls in our chart. Let's go deep and intense with it and really give it our best so that when Jupiter in Scorpio rolls around again in 12 years' time, we've done the work. We've dealt with that. And the path is made easier for us next time because we've really worked hard this time around. So I want to go through each of the signs and have a look at, well, what are the areas that we've been working on over the past year with Jupiter in Scorpio, and where's the last hurrah falling for everybody, and where is the emphasis that we need to focus on for this final week before Jupiter moves into the sign of Sagittarius. And just so you know, that will be happening on the 9th of November when Jupiter moves into Sagittarius. So that'll be next week's astrology report. What's Jupiter going to bring us? But now we're looking at what have we dealt with over the past year and where can we focus our energy in this final week of Jupiter being in Scorpio. Okay, so if you're Aries, let's get this right. If you're Aries, Scorpio is your 8th house. What is deep? What is intense? What is ending? What is finalizing? What karmic knots are being unraveled for you Aries people in the week ahead? Well, it's going to be making you address your own inner intensity. Like, what are you intense about? What are you passionate about? What are you driven about? You're going to revisit those things. Your sexuality, you might be called to readdress your not your sexual preferences so much, but your sexual style, your sexual approach, what turns you on, might be an issue that comes up for you. Your ability to have a sexually satisfying relationship might be something that really rears its ugly head, or its beautiful, fun, good time head for you in the week ahead. You might have a final opportunity to express your sexuality in a new, invigorated way. Or you might be karmically dealing with sexual issues, sexual trauma issues from past lives. If you're a believer in reincarnation, as many astrologers are, you might be dealing with some sort of, final addressing of karmic sexual trauma, or just traumas in general, maybe from childhood. All those sorts of things might be brought up again for you to address and deal with in the coming week. The 8th house is about transformation. It's about the underworld, so trauma, crime, abuse. They're the shadow sides. But also it's about our psychic abilities. So you might find that you are really drawn to start expressing your psychic abilities, or that you discover psychic abilities you didn't know you had, that really rise up out of this Gandanta journey that Jupiter's taking. And so, you're working on unraveling your, perhaps, let's say, your karmic trauma from past lives. And through that, you develop a psychic ability or an energy healing ability, or, even an ability to be a good counselor. This is Scorpio. Nature of Scorpio is very much about the subconscious and the hidden realms. So you might discover these new abilities that you weren't aware that you had, that you can now utilize. It's a very revealing time. It's about difficulties that lead us to a new level, that lead us to a new understanding. So this can really happen for you in this final week. And the last thing is, you might be called to address your own inner darkness. And when I say that, I mean, really, let's be honest here. We all are human, and we all have shadow and light within us, the good and the bad. My karmic belief is that we've all lived lives that have been both good and bad, in inverted commas, good and bad. And so we carry a resonance within us. And so we might be called in this week, this very special week of the year, to address our our inner darkness. What sort of inner passions and desires have we got within us? And this, we're human. We don't have to be ashamed of our inner passions and desires. In fact, what Scorpio is about is keeping things hidden, but maybe in bringing things to the light, journaling about your inner passions, your inner darkness, maybe speaking to a counselor about your inner darkness, or a really, really trusted friend or confidant can actually help resolve a lot of inner darkness issues that you might carry. It's a really good thing to do. The more we can bring our hidden things in Scorpio into the light, the less power they have over us, and the less trauma they can inflict on us. So if you're Aries and battling with some, let's call it inner darkness stuff, then it's a really good week to address that, to like I said, journal about it, or seek some support with those things. All right, so Taurus. Taurus places Scorpio energy and Jupiter in Gandanta degrees in the 7th house. And we've just done so much work on Scorpio energy in the last few weeks. So you're probably all getting quite familiar with what Scorpio in the 7th house for Taurus might bring, and the same goes for every sign by now. But what is it possibly unveiling for you with relationships? Well, what can be unraveling is some karma with relationships and partnerships. That can be business partnerships. It can be even court cases are seen through the 7th house. So you might be unraveling some sort of court case at the moment, and it's got to do with some karmic situation for you. It's got to do with maybe something in a past life. Maybe you've had to go to court with somebody who was maybe an enemy for you in a past life that you've had to resolve now in this life. That's one of the ways karma works. We get to re-interact with people who did us good and not so good in past lives, and try and resolve things. So maybe if you're going through some sort of court case, it is actually an unraveling of the Jupiterian Gandanta degrees karmic knot that you can then resolve and move on from. So put your energy there if that's something you're going through. Don't stick your head in the sand about it. Deal with it, confront it. And like I speak about with all Scorpio issues, bring what is hidden into the light. Don't ignore it. Don't keep it hidden. Don't repress it. If you're feeling frustrated about a court case, or even frustrated about a partnership, Deal with it, go to marriage counseling perhaps might be an option. Speak to someone about your frustrations if it's a court case, or if it's a business partnership and it's not going well and you're dealing with some karmic knot in that regard, then perhaps get some business advice or some financial advice if you need it, or just readdress a contract that you've had, revisit a contract and try and set it up in a manner that works well for you if that's the case. You're going to get some clarity on the spiritual direction of your relationships at this time as well. You're going to know what you really want in partnerships, and that's business partnerships and marriage partnerships as well. It's a time where you will go deep and intense with your partnerships. Business partnerships will also be deep and intense as you readdress them. The issues that have come up, and say in business partnerships over the past year, the issues that have come up in personal relationships over the past year, you're going to readdress them so that you can progress and move forward. Now, Jupiter will guide you here. Jupiter is the guiding star, and he will guide you in the right way to deal with this, especially as he's in good dignity in Scorpio. And so you're going to be you have the tools, the equipment to deal with this one final time. My only encouragement would be, don't put your head in the sand about any issues. Address them while you have the chance to really unravel this karma. And again, you might get some sort of spiritual insight about your relationship that you never had before. You might realize, that you are, even though you have some argy-bargy with your partner frequently, that they are truly your soulmate, and that you're connected in the psychic realms together, in the divine realms in some way. You might get an insight in that regard at this time as well, even though, sometimes you might want to just call it quits. But you might realize this is the hidden Scorpio thing, that your partner or your boyfriend or whoever is actually there in your life to help you unravel some karma and deal with past life issues that need to be laid to rest. All right, we've got Gemini next, and this puts it in the 6th house. So we're going deep, we're going intense. We are ending something, we are finalizing something, we are unraveling karmic knots regarding 6th house things, and this can be enemies. I found this to be the case with the 6th house over the past year. I'm not Gemini rising, but 6th house issues have been very karmic related to the nodes for me. But in this case, we're talking about Jupiter in the 6th house and unraveling karmic knots at Gandanta degrees. So enemies from past lives, enemies from early childhood, enemies from just any time in life can come up for you. You might have had some difficulties over the past year with somebody who's wished you ill and sort of done you no favors and been a real hard ass or made life difficult. And these kind of people that you've had to address in a mature way, and this is just part of the journey, part of the karma that needs unraveling, and you might be called in this week ahead to address those things for a final time. Deal with those people for a final time, or put something in place that starts bringing whatever issue it is, whatever circumstance it is, to a final conclusion. Equally, it's also the house, as you probably know, of health and well-being. Excuse me. And so you might be called to address some health issues. Maybe you've got a bad cough and you need to address your bad cough, or something's been going on health-wise for you throughout the past year. It could mean that you with Jupiter there, that you've established a really fabulous health routine, and you are called to readdress that. Maybe you've slacked off in the last little week or so, and you're like, no, I've got to get back into my going to the gym. And you really start putting some of Jupiter's abundant enthusiasm, shall we say, into your new health routine. So it needn't be bad, but there's certainly some issues that might need readdressing at the end throughout this week that have been about your health for the past 12 months or so. So review, have a look. What came up for you health-wise in the last year? It might have been simply that you kept getting colds throughout winter and, oh, maybe I need to have more vitamin C, eat more oranges or something. Couldn't happen in, very simple ways. It doesn't, sometimes when we look at astrology, we look and we think we've got to have, the big neon flashing signs. It's got to be big. It's got to be large scale. It's got to be like a hurricane that comes into my life, or, a big Tats Lotto win. Sometimes it's the subtle, simple things that are actually really impactful on a psychological level. So maybe it's just simply you've addressed your diet and how you're eating in the last year, and you've changed from being, you've become a vegetarian or something, and this is just a change that's happened for you, and now you readdress that. Is this what I want? Is this helping me in the future? Is it going to help me unveil sort of my spiritual alignment even? Our health of our body is very connected to our mental and psychological well-being. So it's important to address the health of our body from a spiritual perspective as well. Now, the sixth house is healing. The sixth house is also our daily work. So these are the two other areas that might be being impacted by Jupiter there in the Gandanta degree. Something that we're unraveling regarding karma with work. Maybe we've felt like we've had to be a machine, and we felt like we must work to provide for our family, and it doesn't matter whether I'm happy in my work or not, or whether I work 60-hour weeks. It just doesn't matter because I must provide for my family. And Jupiter here gives his last hurrah and says, hang on, you've got to address that, because you are going to burn out. You are not a machine. You're a human being, a human being who needs to experience the joy of life, the pleasure of life on a day-to-day basis. This is very Jupiter, and the pleasure of life. And so he calls you, readdress this and stop squashing down this, making hidden the fact that you are miserable in your daily routine. Please readdress it before I leave Scorpio and go into Sag, So if you are feeling miserable in your daily routine, if you are feeling like you must be a machine and you are denying, they're very Scorpio, they deny and hide what the truth is. If you are denying the truth of the situation, I would encourage you in the week ahead to really address it square on, front up to the situation and make the changes that you need, so that in 12 years' time, you might utterly burn out and have a heart attack or a stroke if you don't, and then you're going to have to readdress, well, what did I do wrong in 12 years' time? Maybe sooner, depending on the nature of your work and how long you can endure being a machine. So that's one example. Your daily work routines are going to be need to be addressed, and it'll be something hidden about your daily routines that you need to front up to and face up to in this next week. It'll be an unraveling of karma. Maybe in a past life you worked really hard and it's just an attitude you've got now in this life that's actually impacting your relationships, that might be impacting your ability to be happy and to be healthy. So, don't be afraid to address things that aren't working and that we might be in denial about. So, Gemini, and now we're into Cancer, and this puts all this Scorpio energy down in the fifth house. So fifth house, we're looking at deep intensity, karmic unraveling, maybe some endings, some finalizations, and up-leveling in a spiritual manner regarding romance, regarding our personal self-expression, regarding our children, and regarding our hobbies and pleasures. So we might be being a bit repressive, a bit scorpionic about a love affair that's really, maybe you've been dating a married man, or, dangling a woman along with no intention of being, long-term faithful to her, or doing something, that you're really in denial about or hiding. Jupiter will probably call you out in the next week and say, hey, face up to, you've got to face up to your responsibilities. This is the Gandanta degrees. They call us to handle things in a mature way. And it can feel like trauma and challenge. But we have to, you know, we are called to be mature when we have a planet such as Jupiter transiting these degrees. Now, Jupiter will be the guiding star in addressing these issues. Jupiter will be, you know, it will cause us to, if you're experiencing this, it'll cause you to want to address it, to be truthful, and to, you know, develop not so much a sense of liberation, but to discover your truth, basically, regarding the issues of, say, love affairs and romance. There might be some karma regarding children. At this time, you might find that, you know, you discover that you get a sense that you've been in a past life with one of your children, and some of the issues that are just sort of sitting within you keep getting triggered, you know, from this past life experience, or maybe some sort of issues from your own childhood that keep getting triggered by your children, and that needs addressing, you know. So there can be some karmic knots, some karmic unraveling related to our children as children, but also as children, our children as individuals who form part of our karmic network, if you like, or our past life network. So we can be having to address some, you know, some triggering that might be occurring with children, you know, that's causing us to have to unravel that knot. So it can be deep, intense, you know, processing with regard to children in the week ahead. Now, it's also the house of our hobbies and our pleasures. And you might find that, you know, with Jupiter here, you look back at your last year and you say, oh my God, I didn't see it coming, but I've developed a new hobby in a certain area that I didn't realize was even unfolding. And now you look back in review at the year just gone, and you see what Jupiter's brought you in terms of children and romance and new hobbies. And so maybe these new hobbies, or this relationship that you've, you know, or romance that you've had, or the children that you've interacted with, have now brought you to a place where your spiritual abilities are being really, really enhanced, really, really blessed, really invigorated. So you might get a new hobby that's astrology. You might get a new hobby that's very scorpionic. Perhaps some sort of a hobby like, you know, you're interested in psychology, and you start reading psychology books, and it becomes your hobby passion. You might get an interest, develop an interest in sort of energy healing, that sort of thing as well, or anything esoteric, or you know, tarot cards, oracle cards, those sorts of things that are kind of the more hidden hobbies, if you like. And you might, you know, have a real opportunity to address your interest in those things. And part of it might also be, we're talking karma this week, might be karma from a past life. Maybe you've had opportunities in the past, or been interested in past lives or childhood to just to explore those things, but never, you know, say in a past life you were never allowed to, you weren't in a position to be able to, and so here's your opportunity that's arisen with Jupiter in Scorpio 5th house over the past year. So you're going to get the opportunity to readdress those things. Maybe you had the chance presented to you to go to a weekend tarot course or something, and you passed it up. Well, maybe you'll get a chance now in the week ahead to address, you know, maybe jumping on YouTube and learning how to do tarot through a YouTube guidance course or something. So there can be many ways this can play out for you. Sorry, lost my place for a second there. There's many ways it can play out for you when you've got 5th house energy being activated by these Gandanta degrees. But it's going to be deep, it's going to be intense, and there might be some need to address things that are hidden regarding romance, children, hobbies, and readdress them so that you can unravel some karmic knots there. Okay, now we're going to move to Leo. And this places Scorpio as your 4th house, Leo. And so we've got some depth, some intensity. We're finalizing something at the final degrees of Scorpio. We are addressing karmic knots, and this is a really intense house to have this going on in. So Leos, you've had a really full-on year with the nodes and eclipses, and now with this Jupiter and Gandanta degrees in the 4th house, because it's intense, because 4th house is about our Sorry about my phone that keeps ringing in the background there. It's all about our psychological self, and our deep emotions are seen in the fourth house. And so when we've got a deep sign like Scorpio, intense, powerful sign like Scorpio in the fourth house, we're going to have some deep, intense, powerful feelings and emotions at this time as we unravel these karmic knots. And the karmic knots are likely to be associated with our past lives and our past lineage, you know, so that can be our genetic lineage, from our mothers and this lifetime, our mothers and fathers' physical genetic heritage that they've imprinted us with. So we might have some issues that come up in that way, genetic issues. We might have been addressing over this past year some skeletons in the closet regarding family that have been brought to light, and dealing with some issues that we didn't even know were issues that were happening in our family, maybe for many, many lifetimes. And so there's a real sense of lots of family karma being unwound at this time. Again, psychological and physical blocks that might be in place regarding family relationships, family dynamics, even your ability to have a physical home can be seen from this placement as well. So Jupiter here may have been giving you the opportunity to look into having a home over the past year, but there might have been some sort of blockage, that comes to light now when Jupiter's at the Gandanta degrees, and we need to address whatever those blockages are that then allows you to move freely in say the new year when Jupiter's fully into Sag without having any type of Gandanta degrees to have to deal with. So we can have some physical and psychological blocks that are regarding our family that we now need to address with great maturity. And these can come from, our family lineage, our heritage, our roots. And I'm talking not just our not just our family line, but even our communities where we've grown up in, our, the suburb we grew up in, or the small town, or wherever it happens to be, the culture that we were part of. This can all there can be some psychological and physical blocks to some issue regarding our heritage in that broad sense. So you might need to, when Jupiter transits these Gandanta degrees, really work on, well, my deep intensity and my emotions regarding the culture I came from. For example, say you came from a culture that you weren't really in alignment with, you don't really appreciate, having grown up in a certain culture, and you've got some animosity towards, where you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to maybe stop pretending and start addressing those issues of cultural frustration that you might have experienced. Maybe you're in a culture where, I don't know, women weren't valued, or you weren't given opportunities that you might otherwise have gotten in a different cultural environment, and you need to, Jupiter calls you in these last degrees, in this last first week of November, to address those things and to deal with sort of cultural frustrations. But look back at the year just gone. What has come up regarding your family? What's come up regarding culture? What has come up for you regarding your physical home? And think, right, where do I still need to address those things? Where do I need to bring my hidden frustrations regarding those things into the light, so that I can leave that karma far behind in the future? And so Virgo rising, here's Virgo here. This places Scorpio energy in the third house. So you might have some deep, intense feelings regarding a small business. You might have been addressing, with Jupiter there, providing a sense of expansion and opportunity. You might have been thinking about establishing a small business over the past year, maybe doing some marketing, maybe doing some advertising, maybe teaching something, or possibly writing a book, or maybe even learning some sort of new skill that you can use your hands for, the crafts, the woodwork and textiles and things like that we see from the third house. And so you might have had an opportunity over the past year to develop those things, and now Jupiter is sitting at the final degrees, and you've got to address these things for the final time. He gives his last hurrah, like the last opportunity you're going to have to establish that teaching course that you've been wanting to do. Better get on and do it. You might have the last opportunity to really set up that business and get it running the way you want it to when Jupiter is at the final degrees. You know, you've been thinking about it all year. The opportunity has been there. You haven't done the work. Now, the last chance, last hurrah. And so you're going to have some intensity and depth of feeling around all those sorts of things. There might be some ending, some finalization regarding a business, regarding a teaching opportunity, regarding some kind of, learning opportunity, or writing a book or a magazine or a blog or something. You might be getting to the last stages of that and addressing it for the final time. And it might feel like plodding, putting one foot in front of the other, and I've had enough of trying to write this, world-changing novel, or I've had enough of my blog and I'm sick of having to write an article every week for it. And Jupiter calls you to address that, address, what you might be in denial about, what you might not be even consciously aware about. That's very, very Scorpio. We're doing stuff, we're not consciously aware of it, and then something happens like Jupiter at the Gandanta degrees, where we're called to address it, where we can't live in denial any longer, and we need to make a change. So this can happen in all of those ways, or many of those ways, and hopefully it leads you to a place where your true gifts can really manifest. You say, okay, enough with writing the blog. I can't keep writing articles and nobody reads them, and I've had enough of it. And so you decide that you're going to take a different course, and maybe or a different route in life, and you start studying some kind of spiritual practice, or energy work, or maybe some sort of hidden interest that you've had for a long time, and you start developing your skills in that area now. There's an ending and finalization, and something hidden comes to the surface as part of what you need to unravel karmically, to let go of what's not working and to embrace what is. So look at what's happened for you regarding your skills and talents and abilities, regarding learning and businesses and so forth over the past year, and where is that energy now pointing you towards in the days ahead, especially the week that we're looking at now with Jupiter at these degrees. Libra, this puts Scorpio's second house. So money, 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 possessions. I mean, when I say money, 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 the second house is actually much, much more than money. It's about anything that we need to live a human life here on earth, So it's self-worth. It's about the clothes that we wear, and it's about having a decent car that gets us from A to B without flat tires or whatever. It's about our resources. So and money plays a big part of that, which is why money is often the focus in dialogue about the second house. So we've got Jupiter here. There's a lot of intensity around money for Libra people in the coming week. There's a lot of endings and finalizations regarding issues that have been prominent over the past year regarding money. Now, maybe Jupiter gave you the opportunity to expand your money situation, or expand collections of clothing or jewelry, or expand your resources in some manner over the last year. And now you're going to be called to readdress those opportunities. Maybe you didn't make the most of one opportunity over the last year. Well, now's your final chance. Maybe there's a finalization. Maybe you invested your money into some, stock exchange, share market opportunity or something, and there's a final opportunity to make money out of this in the week ahead. You play the stock market, you're always watching what's going on, and you get a final chance to really make the most of that opportunity. But there's this finalization regarding possessions and money and self-value as well, that's got to do with what Jupiter's been bringing you over the past year. And so reflect, look back, what has been happening for you regarding self-worth, regarding money over the past year. Maybe you've been in a position where you've lost a job, and now you're like, well, how am I going to make money? What's going to happen for me regarding money in the year ahead? And you're able to really tie those karmic untie those karmic knots and put an end to a certain situation regarding money or income, or and finish that off as you embark on something new. Now, I'm not saying it has to be a job loss. Maybe it's something, some other money investment that you've got, or perhaps it's been to do with things that you purchase, things that you buy, and you've been buying up big on black dresses with oranges on them or something over the last year, and you called to account now. You're made to address, well, do I really need 20 dresses with oranges on them? Crazy stupid examples, but you are going to be called to readdress your financial situation in the week ahead, in the light of what's occurred for you over the past year. And there's going to be some sort of karma there. Maybe in a past life you were somebody who was frivolous with money, and now you need to readdress, well, I need to be responsible, I need to be mature. This is what the Gandanta degrees are all about, is having to address karmic issues, karmic problems, and handle them now in a very mature way. So for you, it's going to be all about maturity regarding possessions, maturity regarding money and income and resources for living. And that can include our food as well. So it doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, the stock market crashes and I'm left with nothing. It can just be like, okay, you know what? We've been eating really unwisely. Our food has been costing us a lot of money. Let's grow our own, or let's produce our own herbs, or let's do something in our backyard, instead of having to depend on my income to buy us money all the time. It can be simple as that. It doesn't have to be big, large scale things, but there's going to be a karmic readdressing of that finances regarding a karmic readdressing, sorry, of the financial situation that you've been looking at over the past year. Okay, Scorpio in the first house. So this actually means that you are going to be dealing with some really personal karmic stuff over the coming week. Now, there can be many things that Jupiter has brought you over the last year. In fact, I've had a lot of clients with Scorpio rising say, I don't know what Jupiter's done for me this year. I feel like everything's gone wrong. And where is the good gifts of Jupiter been in my life? They haven't been anywhere. But when we're Scorpio rising, we need to look deep and intense, naturally enough. What has been happening for us at a really deep personal level? What has been changed? Where were you a year ago when Jupiter was in Libra? What was your attitude to the world, your worldview? How were you showing up in the world? Were you showing up in the world? And maybe there's things that you're not even realizing that have occurred for you over the last year with Jupiter there. Maybe you were in a job that you were just, again, I'll use the illustration of being a machine. Maybe you're in a job where you were a machine and you hated it. And by now maybe you haven't got a job, but you're not in that job you hated anymore. You're in a different place entirely. And so Jupiter in Scorpio has brought you, the way you show up in the world through your career or job in this case, in this example, to a totally different place where you are addressing things in a different way with a different attitude, and you're actually starting to get more enthused about what you do and how you show up in the world and how that can manifest. So we often overlook the ways that Jupiter and other planets impact our lives because we're looking for the big, the tornadoes, the cyclones, and the big windfalls, but actually what they do is work on a very subtle level. So maybe it's an attitude change that you've had over the past year. Maybe it's, even some kind of relationship to your own self. Maybe the way you see yourself has changed a lot this year, or the way you dress, the way maybe you've got a fabulous new hairstyle that makes you look 10 years younger. There can be a lot of really subtle ways that Jupiter may have influenced you as the first house, but it'll be to do with how you show up in the world, your physical appearance, and how others see you and perceive you. So lots of room for amazing things to have actually occurred over the last year. And so with Jupiter in Gandanta degrees, you are going to have to address what those issues were. You know, just say you did have a brand new haircut and it looks fabulous. And you know, over the course of the year, your hair's grown long again, and you've got to get another haircut. Okay, I've got to go and readdress. Am I going to have that haircut again, or get something completely different? That's really simple, but it's also one of the ways this can play out. There's a readdressing, a last hurrah regarding your appearance and the way you show up in the world, your presence in human bodily form, in the society, the world in which we live, that you'll be readdressing. Now, there's some karma associated here, because the first house it's kind of like all the houses rolled into one. So for Scorpio people, it's very, very powerful. It's been an intense, a really intense couple of months for Scorpio people, Scorpio rising people. As I said in the beginning of this, the material ties you have to the world, and I'm not just talking about, oh, that's my home, that's my clothes, that's my car. I'm talking about your connection with the third dimensional reality might really be shattered with Jupiter's moving through here. And Jupiter might guide you to a whole spiritual new plane for you Scorpio rising people. So you might have a completely different view of the world, view of spirituality, belief systems. This is Jupiter in the Gandanta degrees. There can be a complete and utter unraveling of your belief systems. A complete and utter unraveling of, your ties to this material world, and maybe you start to enter into more the astral plane. Maybe you start to enter into the more karmic, the more psychic planes in a big way, and maybe that's what's been unraveling for you over the course of the year. Your own karmic, psychic, divine self has grown and developed muscles and strength, and you might not even realize that that's what Jupiter has been working on for you over the past year. So maybe you've been listening to a lot of spiritual talks on YouTube, or reading a lot of spiritual books, and getting a lot of what is hidden in Scorpio for you, which might be interest in spiritual things, interest in hidden esoteric metaphysical kind of practices and stuff, and that is now coming to the surface with Jupiter in Gandanta degrees. You might be called to address the fact that you're not being upfront and honest about your new belief systems, your new the new discoveries that you've made in this past year. And Jupiter's going to call you to be truthful and honest about that, to be authentic about that, and to reveal it and not keep it so hidden. So we've got Sagittarius rising now on our last 4 signs. We've got Sagittarius rising, and this makes this energy of Jupiter in the 12th house. So for Sagittarius people, this is extraordinarily karmic. The 12th house is an incredibly karmic house. So you are dealing with a double whammy of karmic issues at this time when Jupiter transits the Gandanta degrees. So there are some real heavy-duty karmic things that you're going to have to deal with. Now, if you've never had a past life regression but always thought about it, it might actually be a really good time to do that, to discover what are my blocks, what is holding me back from success and prosperity in this lifetime, that that I need to address, that I need to lay to rest, that I need to process and move on from. Now, I don't know if anyone is familiar with the work of Patricia Walsh, who is an incredible astrologer and a past life regressionist. And if you are not familiar with her, I would encourage you to look her up and discover more about her and her work, because there's definite ties to the natal chart with our karmic past lives. And I've seen that in my own life, and I'm seeing it a lot in many of my clients who come to me as well. But Patricia's done an astounding body of work regarding karma and past lives. So, for Sagittarius rising people, this is a time when, you might have been getting the inkling all year. I'd really like to have a past life regression. I'd really like to know more. This is Jupiter, likes to know, wants to understand. I'd really like to know more about, if I have lived before in a lifetime before, what is that now playing out in my current life for me? How am I dealing with that? So you might like to have a past life regression to explore that, or you could get a karmic reading. I offer karmic readings through my services. And so you might like to go down that road as well, and perhaps understand a little bit more about your own karma. And Jupiter will be calling you to address that in the next week or so as he transits the karmic degrees of Scorpio, and then heads into your sign for a wonderful year ahead when Jupiter transits your rising sign, Sagittarius people. Now, also, karmic dreams are also going to be something that might crop up for you in the week ahead, really intense ones. So write down your dreams, journal them, and then use them to guide you and figure out, well, okay, what is this telling me? What are the issues in this dream that I now need to look at my own everyday waking reality with and make some changes about? Maybe you dream about, I don't know, like you could dream about spiders or snakes, that sort of thing. Then jump on the internet, Google animal totems and spirit animals, and see what the message was, and then address that in your life. How does it apply now? I find that very, very useful, actually, and it's always on the money. If I get some kind of a dream about an animal, or I have an animal cross my path in life, I then look into the totem significance, spirit animal significance, and it is always 100% accurate. The universe is amazing in its synchronicity. It really, really, truly is. So Sagittarius rising people, if you have those sorts of experiences, those sorts of spiritual contacts from the other world. I mean, we use the term a lot. Oh, contact with the divine and talking to my spirit guides and stuff like that. Yes, that's a thing, but it's also a bit ambiguous. We also need to talk about the practical reality of that, and that comes through things like signs and omens, and particularly animals and nature trying to get the message through to us a lot of the time. So jump online. There's a ton of information for Sagittarius rising people who might have particularly interesting experiences in the week ahead, as they are working on unraveling some karma, and can do that through their dream life and through the spiritual connection of the divine. This is very 12th house. 12th house is the divine realms wanting to connect with us, wanting us to up level and step into a new evolution, so to speak, or a new enlightenment period. But as I said, it's going to be deep. It's going to be intense. There will be some finalization, perhaps, of some sort of spiritual matters or belief systems even. And definitely through this, some unraveling of karma. And yeah, like I said, intense because it's Scorpio. All right, moving along. For Capricorn rising people, this places everything happening in Scorpio in the 11th house, and so there's going to be karmic not unraveling occurring for you with regard to friendships and friends and large groups of people. So you might have some karma with, I don't know, maybe a large group of people. Maybe in a past life you had some issues with a friend, or a group of people even, some struggles with friendships or some not so pleasant experiences, and now in these Gandanta degrees, as Jupiter is there, you might be called to readdress those issues with friendship circles again. Maybe you were easily offended in a past life, and you lost friends because you got offended so easily, and you kept to yourself more. I mean, being Capricorn rising, you might find that you did your work and you worked hard and you didn't pay enough attention to your friendship groups, and they gradually fell away. So now when Jupiter is at this degree, you are going to be called to readdress issues like that. How are you treating your friends? How have you treated your friends in the past year? What is your relationship like with your friends? And there's going to be some depth and some intensity about that for you in this next week. And Jupiter is going to call you to sort of, you know, he's going to guide you towards addressing those things and maybe finalizing some friendships that weren't working for you, maybe drawing an end to some friendships that weren't really doing it for you. But you're going to have to address that, and there's going to be some karma associated with that. You're going to have to deal with these sorts of things with great maturity. Equally, you're going to have to deal with your future goals and visions with a great deal of maturity at this time. And this comes naturally for a lot of Capricorn people because they show up in the world that way with a great deal of maturity and responsibility. But Jupiter will call you to extra of that in these degrees as he makes his last hurrah through the sign of Scorpio. So you're going to need to, revise your visions and goals and your forward looking for the future and make sure it aligns with reality and that it's realistic. And there might be some hidden goals and dreams that you've been keeping to yourself, that you've been in denial of even. Maybe you've always aspired to run a dress shop and, but you've been working as a nurse and Jupiter is going to call you to account. Well, hey, what about that? That hidden dream that you've got of having a dress shop or selling your clothing, homemade clothing online or something, and he's going to say, well, what about your hidden dreams and goals? Let's look at those. Are they realistic? Can we make them work? And will this be good for you as in your human journey? Will this give you more joy? Will this bring more satisfaction to your life? That's what Jupiter likes us to address, actually. Are we satisfied? Are we living life with joy? And if we're not, well, what do we need to address? What do we need to change to live life with more joy? So he will call you to do that. And there's beautiful karma in doing that for you in the next week. So how can you live your life with more joy? How can you accomplish your goals and dreams and visions? And how can you establish and maintain worthwhile friendships that may have evolved for you and come into your world over the past year? Alrighty, now we're getting to Aquarius. Aquarius rising places all of this lovely Scorpio energy in the 10th house. So career is where it's at. You're going to feel very intensely about your career in the coming week. There's going to be some intensity, maybe some difficult situations, maybe some blockages, physical and psychological, that might be occurring regarding your career. And there can be some frustration with Jupiter at these karmic degrees, and part of that is that you're going to have to deal with it maturely and sensibly and handle things in a very responsible way. So if you can do that, you stand a really good chance of being able to unravel any karmic blocks regarding your career. So what this can bring is you deal with a troublesome situation, a difficult situation. You deal with it maturely and responsibly at work. Maybe it's a work colleague or a project. And so you deal with it. And then it leads you, like childbirth, births you into a new level, births you into a new opportunity that you didn't even know existed, maybe, or there's something hidden there that you weren't even aware was going on for you at work, but it's about being birthed into a new opportunity. So there's going to be a readdressing of career issues, worldly achievement kind of things that come up in the next week, and part of it will be very karmic. There'll be some, maybe it's a relationship with your boss and you're doing some karmic unraveling. Maybe you've been together in a past lifetime, you and your boss, and there's a dynamic working out there. It's sort of hidden dynamic, Scorpio kind of stuff, and you handle it maturely, you handle it wisely, and it lays this karmic issue that has existed between you and the energy of your boss for many lifetimes. It lays it to rest. And this is your lifetime to set it straight between you and your boss, or it might be between you and your understanding of what it means to have worldly achievements, what it means to have a career. Maybe you've had an attitude or an idea about what it means to be worldly successful, and it's actually not accurate. It's actually not authentic. And so Jupiter calls you to be more authentic and to be a bit more realistic, and a bit more expansive too. That's very Jupiter, to know the truth and to be more expansive and to have more experience. So he calls you to that in this final week. Now, it's possible that you've had some issues regarding career, opportunities also regarding career advancement and worldly achievement over the past year with Jupiter there, and you need to, really celebrate whatever has come your way with Jupiter in that placement. But there's going to be final addressing of something intense, something perhaps that's been hidden regarding Jupiter's course through this house for you over the coming weeks. At the coming week, I'm sorry. So this is, very intense time. Lots of finalizing of some career opportunities, some worldly achievement opportunities, maybe relationships with bosses, like I said. But if you handle it maturely and wisely, you will come out the other side having dealt with karma and laid a lot of stuff to rest. And finally, Pisces. This is 9th house. So for the last year, Pisces have probably been dealing with maybe benefactors who've given them opportunities, people who've inspired them, people who've got their back, and maybe opportunities for more study, more learning, maybe opportunities to travel even for some lucky Pisces people. But any of those three things can be how this energy has played out over the past year with Jupiter there. Jupiter is the lord of Pisces in traditional astrology. So, and it's trining, Jupiter's been trining your house Pisces, your sign Pisces for the last year. So there may have been many opportunities that have come your way. What you need to do is, the thing with Pisces people, I speak from experience, is that we can often be disillusioned about things and not see what the truth really is. Pisces people can be sometimes a little bit confused. And so maybe we've had plenty of opportunities that we haven't actually grasped, that we haven't realized were even opportunities that came to us regarding learning, regarding travel, regarding, benefactors, people who had our back. And so this final week with our ruling planet heading into, or in Gandanta degrees, is going to call us to address that. Well, okay, where did I have an opportunity that I didn't make the most of? Where did I have a benefactor who had my back that I need to sort of, oh my God, I need to grab that and run with that opportunity. I didn't realize that there was some support there, even though it was being offered to me on a platter. Or maybe I had a chance to study something and I didn't take it up. And now you're going to be called to readdress that. And there's going to be an intensity about it. There's going to be a feeling of, oh my God, I don't want to miss this opportunity at the last minute kind of thing. You might feel that there's been some sort of a block to having success. The 9th house is the luckiest house in the horoscope. And you might look back at your previous year and say, oh my God, I feel like everything was blocked for me, like I didn't get a chance to achieve what I wanted to achieve, and to make the most of this lucky sojourn through our 9th house, Pisces. And Jupiter's going to say, well, hang on, let's review this. Let's call up what's happened for us and review this energy, and address any of these blocks that were there. Maybe we had a blockage regarding learning because, well, maybe we financially couldn't afford to undertake the course of study that we wanted to do. Jupiter's going to cause us to readdress that and perhaps karmically unravel issues regarding our ability to learn, our financially or mentally or in physical capacity. What has been the blocks to our being able to learn and study over the past year, or to travel? What have been the blocks there? Maybe again it's financial or a physical location issue. Where have the blockages lain for us, and Jupiter will help us readdress that and help us to unravel. Okay, so maybe finances. I haven't been able to study, I haven't been able to travel because financially I haven't been in a very good place. Jupiter will make us address what the blockage is, and it's not going to be easy. It might feel a bit like childbirth and labor. We're going to just, okay, well, I need to earn more money to be able to study more, to be able to travel more, to be able to do those things that are in the very ninth house. Maybe we've had a benefactor, maybe even a father figure, often seen from the ninth house, that we haven't even realized was there, and we need to address, well, what's this block been in my life that I haven't made the most of this this inspirational person. Maybe for example, you might work for somebody, or have a friend who's just so inspiring, and you haven't honored them. You haven't recognized that they are quite an extraordinary person in your life. So Jupiter will call you to address this. Well, you need to go and say thank you. You need to be grateful. You need to honor the people who inspire you, who give you kudos, who've got your back. So Jupiter is going to call us to account there as well, and there'll be some karmic relief that comes from that. Maybe there's an end to some sort of course of study. Maybe there's a finalization of a travel opportunity. Maybe you've been traveling a lot for work or something, and then that's all coming to a conclusion now, with Jupiter leaving the sign of Scorpio. But it's a final hurrah, and there's karmic connections there to that as well. So thanks for sticking with me throughout all this. There's a lot of Scorpio energy, but next time we're going to be looking at more of the Sagittarian energy, and the dynamics of things are going to change, because Venus will be leaving Scorpio, Jupiter will be leaving Scorpio, and Mercury's on its way out as well. So the energy is definitely shifting now that we're into November. We're just going to have this final week of, playing out the last hurrah, so to speak. So may it be a blessing for you. Let's say a little prayer for guidance from our guiding star Jupiter, and have a great week. Jupiter, your energy is abundant, it is prosperous, and it wants our highest good. And so we invite that energy of prosperity, the energy of our highest good and abundance into our lives for the coming week. May we deal with our karma. May we address issues in our psyche that are holding us back, and any blocks that are stopping us being who we could be and having a wonderful life, a joyous, jovial, fun life like you would like us to have. And so we ask for your energy and support this week to address those issues and to rise above the things that hold us back. And so it is.
It's just a soul and feel.